Hey everyone, welcome to the channel. It's been a while since we've done a biblio, so I figure we'll go ahead and do that. Let me just leave that there. So today we're just going to read from whatever spirit message from Dharma Punx by Levine. See if you can see the title of that. And if you like what you hear, there's more in the playlist as well. I know there's 243 pages, so we'll go ahead and clear the energy with the bowl. Avert your ears. I think this is a good spot for it. All right, here we go. All right. All right, let's take the dice and we'll see what pages Spirit wants us to read from. All right. Spirit, what guidance do you have for the general collective at this time? For whom it'll resonate for whenever the time is divine. Please and thank you so much. All right, these numbers may be significant to you as well. Birthdays, just general numbers, maybe synchronicities. We have number 5. We have, ooh, nice. We have 12 and 12 again. Let me get that dice. Try to put it in there so I can stay put. All right, 12 again. So 12, 12 may be significant, 5 may be significant, even 3, 6, 24, 27, no, 29, maybe 27 too. All right, so let's see what page we can work with here. 65. All right. Perfect. It starts with a brand new chapter, Chapter 8. Nailed to the X. From juvenile hall, I was shipped off to a group home. The man from the boys' home who came to pick me up was named Jim. He looked like an old surfer stoner with unkempt curly hair, wearing a wrinkled button-up shirt, jeans, and flip-flops. He was giving me this whole talk about the rules of the place and how this was my last chance. If you fuck up, that's it. No second chances, he said. Then he offered me a cigarette. I was so happy to have a smoke that I forgot to be pissed at him for taking me to some place where my freedom was being taken away for the next several months. I was relieved to be enjoying a smoke in his little Toyota Corolla and not shackled by the hands and feet on an armored bus headed to prison. A part of me knew that this was going to be a good thing. If I wanted to stay off the drugs, it was going to take something like this to help me stay away from the old crew. One thing I did hear at those meetings in juvie was that it was important to have sober friends. The only people in the world I knew who were sober were those guys I had met in the hall. In the group home, I shared a room with some African-American crackheads from East Palo Alto. We had a lot in common, except that they were into hip-hop, and I was into punk rock. I actually really liked hip-hop a lot, but was still a little afraid to admit it. The scene in the group home wasn't too bad. I got along pretty well with the kids I roomed with, even though we were all teenage crackheads. We all had our differences. I was still a white punk rocker from hippie parents, and they were black ghetto kids from the inner city. The people who ran the house were these hillbilly types. They seemed to have good intentions and did the best they could with a house full of juvenile delinquents. We were allowed to smoke cigarettes, but no more than 1 pack a day. I was sent to a continuation school in Watsonville, where I continued studying for the GED. I had missed way too much high school to even attempt to graduate, so I was just waiting until I turned 18 to take the GED test. School wasn't too bad, mostly gangbangers and group home kids. Nobody messed with me, and I pretty much kept to myself. Eventually, I was allowed to get a job and work part-time, which allowed me to save money for when I was released. I got a job at a pizza place that I had worked for a short time before I got locked up. I told the owner all about my troubles and the group home and that I was staying sober now, and he was cool enough to give me a job. After I was in the group home for a couple of months, they gave me a home pass to go see my mom for a week or so. I immediately looked up Toby. I thought he would understand my decision to be sober. When I found him, he was living in a little room that had been constructed by putting up 2 walls in the corner of a living room with several other punks and these beautiful bisexual dominatrix girls. I had been sober for about 4 months, and it had been even longer than that since I had gotten laid. I may have been even more excited about meeting his roommates than seeing my old friend. Toby gave me the news about where everyone from our crew was. This kid, Brant, who we knew, and some other guys had all gotten sent to youth authority for beating and robbing someone at an ATM. Mark was doing time for possession, and Bubbles had moved to Texas with his girlfriend. Most of the other punks were still around, still drinking down at Desolation. This wasn't the end for those guys. After doing a bunch of time locked up, Mark became a suicidal Vato Loco punk. He continued living the street life, and in the end they found Mark's body in the bushes on the side of Highway 9, where whoever he was with when he overdosed had left him only a few hours earlier. Brant ended up doing 6 years straight. From youth authority, he was shipped directly to the state penitentiary, where he picked up more time for doing what he had to do to survive in those hell realms. When he finally got out in 1996, he was no longer the nice skate punk kid I had once known. He was a man, an institutionalized man, hardened from having been 6 years down. But Brant was luckier than Billy or Mark, whom we had already buried. He got out and stayed sober. Toby wanted to get some beer, so we all got a 12-pack and he started drinking. And I was telling him about how I was sober and all the stuff I had learned in 12-step recovery. He was not very impressed, and said that he thought it would be probably cool if I had just 1 or 2 beers to celebrate my freedom. Without even thinking about it, I decided he was right. A couple of beers couldn't hurt me. After all, it was the harder drugs that were the real problem anyway. So I cracked open a nice cold can of Schaefer beer and drank the whole thing in one long, slow chug. The booze felt great in my system after having been sober for so many months, so I just opened another and drank that one down. With 2 beers in my belly, I was feeling pretty good, and it seemed like a fine idea to have another, and another, and another, until all the beer was gone. At that point, the only logical thing to do was to get some more. Once I started drinking, I just couldn't stop. It was as if I had totally lost control. There was a voice in my head repeating all the stuff I had learned, but I just couldn't stop my hand from grabbing another beer. Internally, there was a war going on between my head full of recovery and my body full of booze. My head lost, and I surrendered to my addiction. Later that evening, when we were both good and drunk, the dominatrix girls invited us to their room to play some cards with them. I was extremely fucked up and really hoping to get together with one of them. They proceeded to make out with each other, and I passed out in the corner. When I came to, I was in Toby's little room on the floor, and the familiar smell of burning chemicals told me that Toby was smoking some crack. I looked up and saw him sucking on a glass pipe with some crazy-looking hippie dude. It was all I could do just to roll over and go back to sleep. When I woke up the next day, I couldn't believe what I had done. I swore to myself not to drink again. My experiment with drinking had proven what I had been hearing. Alcoholics cannot stop drinking once they begin. That same night, I was with Toby at some surf punk's house down the street, and someone offered me a beer. Without even thinking about it, I took it and drank it down as fast as I could. Same thing happened that night. Once I started drinking, I just couldn't stop. This only had to happen a couple more times for me to start to see the pattern and to remember what my sober friends had told me. 1 is too many, and 1,000 is never enough. It also helped me a lot when shortly after that, Toby checked himself into rehab, seeking his own recovery. It was the motivation that I needed to go back and start over on my sobriety. There you go, guys. Have a great day.